But it involved a 14-year-old boy in Massachusetts, and he ate this. I guess he was at school at the time, went to the school health, to the nurse, and they sent him home rather than calling the hospital. And then he was found unconscious shortly thereafter and died. So, there's no indication that the autopsy report has been released yet. And so we don't know if it's...
Seems like a little bit of a stretch to immediately kind of blame it on the chip here. I mean, all right. And it makes sense for them not to call the ambulance. I mean, like I said, right? Your first guess isn't going to be like, okay, he ate a chip. His life is at risk
but
here.
Yeah.
He's miserable, exactly, but his life isn't at risk. And then he's found unconscious, and there's no autopsy. There's no direct connection yet. Had the parents picked him up and found him unconscious at home, or did they just like leave him on the bed in the infirmary?
No, well, he was home, and then the brother found him passed out. He was taken to the hospital and then pronounced dead.
Wow. Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
dangerous drug and product cases.
Welcome back. Another week, another show. Welcome to Prioritizing Profits, Dangerous Drug and Product Cases. Back at it, another week, another show. We know you went out of town. We discussed it last week. You went out of town this weekend. How was that? How was your trip?
It was great. It was really fabulous. In fact, I left, so we recorded last Wednesday, and then I was up at 3:30 in the morning and gone on Thursday, and I just got back last night. So I've been gone like the entire time between shows.
That's insane. Yeah. Did it feel like you just kind of like blinked and then all of a sudden you're back here at the show?
Pretty much. I mean, I figure if I'm here, I'm doing the show. Otherwise, I'm someplace else having fun.
And I saw a few pictures. I saw that you guys had your table for the book club.
We did.
And then I saw pictures of lobster as well.
I was in Maine.
Yeah.
Maine is like known for lobsters.
Is that like the hot spot?
Oh, yeah. I mean, those are the best lobsters. And so I had lobsters, well, just the full lobster, like they pull it out of the ocean and they steam it up.
It looked a little bland. It looked like they just didn't even like season it. They just kind of threw it in some warm water, gave it a nice warm bath, and then threw it on your plate.
You don't need to season lobster. It's fabulous. One night, 2 nights I had like the full-on whole lobster bodies.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, they're like serious business in Maine. I mean, they know how to do their lobster thing because, when you get lobsters here in Arizona, I mean, we're not really, lobster experts or anything, obviously, being landlocked.
Yeah.
But I mean, they're like nicely cracked at least. So even if you get the full shell, there's like little slices. It's really easy to get into. Not so in Maine. It's just like the whole thing. But they do give you like little directions.
Oh, so they gotta like give you a little pamphlet on how to eat your food.
Well, lobsters. I mean, it's not like, just fork and put food.
Well, I mean, I'm used to the Arizona way where they just kind of give it to you. Make it easy. Yeah, which I love. I don't like to work for my food, except for crab. Crab, it's good enough to where I'm willing to work for it.
That's part of the whole experience.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That's fair.
Well, and then getting to put on the lobster bib is part of that experience as well. Although,
of course.
Man, it does, you just do get messy.
Does it?
So, yeah.
It just happens regardless.
Pretty much. But so I had the lobster, the full-on lobster full bodies twice, and then I had like a really fabulous lobster pasta one night. So.
Do you have any crab cake? I know you're a big...
No, I mean, that's like more of a Maryland thing or even California, but Maine is lobster. I just had to do all the lobster I could possibly do.
Fun fact, lobster and like shrimp and crab used to be food for peasants way back in the day. It was considered peasant food because it's like crustaceans. It's like the rats.
Like bottom dwellers.
Bottom feeders of the ocean. And then just slowly through society, we've slowly kind of like swapped it out to where it's more of an upper class, expensive level of food.
Well, I have to say that I have like a certain affinity for crabs and shrimp and lobsters because having, as an attorney, been called one time in court a scum-sucking bottom feeder.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of can relate to that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, I'm a big crab fan. We recently we found Juicy Crawfish, which is a seafood broil place, and it's it's in Tempe-ish area, and it's like in the Asian part of town where there's a bunch of Asian supermarkets and just stores, and it's like a Asian twist on, or a Korean twist, I guess, on just like seafood broil. And we get pounds of food. It's fantastic. We like going on Friday where we have plenty of time. We set up camp, essentially. I got the bibs, get a few pounds of food and just down it all.
So this is one of those where it comes like in the bag where they,
Yeah.
and then and you can have different seasonings, so it's not bland. I obviously don't want
Exactly.
bland.
Well, that's what I'm saying is when I saw it in the picture, it just looked like a pale lobster that was, thrown in a bath, thrown on the plate. When I get seafood at this place, I mean, you can't even see the shell. There's such a thick layer of seasoning.
Oh, okay. Well, lobster just in its pure form is just fabulous, though. It's just, I don't even dip it in butter.
See, I mean, I get that, but I also don't understand like what makes lobster even better because lobster is lobster. Like it's.
Well, you haven't had Maine lobster fresh off the boat.
I
You have
haven't
not,
fresh
so
off the boat.
I'm telling you.
Well, it sounds like a good trip overall. How
Fabulous.
did the table go with the book club?
It was good. It was very good. Got some good. We had a little selfie frame and talked to a lot of people. And our author for the next month was there. So I think it was good.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if anybody signed up yet, but we passed out bookmarks with the QR code to join. A couple of leads on some groups of people who might be interested. So I know.
Did anyone recognize you? Oh my gosh, that's Sarah. That's Sarah. Can I get a picture?
Well, of course, everybody.
Yeah. You couldn't go down the hall without someone pulling you aside.
Yeah, maybe not famous, but infamous. Not really, but well, I mean, I've been to this event. It's in different cities, but I've been to the event multiple times. So, in fact, I've been to all of them except one. So I'm kind of a regular. So I guess I should be.
And how did the ecstatic dancing go?
Oh yes, okay. So the ecstatic dance was very interesting. I didn't really know what it was, but now I'm familiar with the whole concept.
You've been educated.
I've been educated. I've actually experienced it, and I will have you know, I did not sit on the sidelines.
Yeah, you're
As you
ecstatic.
expected. I don't know if I would quite say I rose to the level of ecstatic.
Okay, well then you didn't do it right because this is ecstatic dancing.
I tried to get into it. So, but it's kind of interesting. And the couple that put it on were very interesting sort, definitely on the woo side. And so basically what it was is there's this whole playlist and it progresses. So it starts off very relaxing and low key and you're supposed to just kind of sway and start to get into the feel of the music.
Okay.
And then it kind of gets, up higher, the stronger beat and a little bit louder. And then of course it will get to the point where it's, ecstatic.
Heavy dubstep. Pow, wow, wow, wow. Just like that.
Not exactly.
Okay.
And a lot of it was kind of like tribal music, and it wasn't like music that you actually knew, or even a lot of it didn't have words to it. So
yeah. It was like that or something.
some of it was like that, so kind of
Okay.
chanty
Yeah.
stuff, and then just kind of like the drum stuff. But it was, it was interesting. And then they kind of wound down. But and then they threw in like a Journey song and some, just some classic songs that and people were jumping around singing to.
Yeah.
After all of the tribal and music.
No, that makes sense. I mean, kind of ease people in it. Let them kind of let their walls down, let their guard down, and then you put some sing-alongs in there. Party in the USA. That's a classic. We always threw that one on in college. Everyone loved it. Shake That by Eminem. Who I don't know who the other person is. That's big. So I'm assuming they probably didn't do those. But Journey is classic as well.
Journey's classic for more of our age range.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was really long though, and it didn't start till kind of late, and it was on Friday night. And we're not the youngest of of ecstatic dancers, I guess.
Yeah.
So it just went on for a really long time, and then they want like to sit in a circle and kind of decompress and talk about things. But
Okay, that's just it's a little much.
yeah, you would not have handled that part well. Definitely not. Well, and even those, and so the guy who was leading it, he was the keynote who went a little rogue on the keynote later on.
Rogue.
Yeah, they went a little rogue.
Okay, well, let's get through this, and I'm curious how he went rogue.
But so he was kind of like talking about, feel it, and if you cry, and if you, let your emotions out. And so that part, I thought I was just going to kind of go dance and have a good time.
Yeah,
I wasn't into like, fully emoting and all of that kind of stuff.
I think that's what most people thought. Most people thought that when you read ecstatic dancing, you don't think, wow, I might cry at this event. I'm going to have to really let loose and let my demons come out.
Yeah, he wanted demons out. He wanted demons to be exorcised.
Yeah, just all over the room.
Yeah.
You're dancing him out.
Messy.
And so you said he went rogue at the keynote. Love to hear how.
Well, so it was this event for women all around the country who want to socialize and enjoy like a weekend alcohol-free. And so the keynote speakers were there. They own a bottle shop in Houston, so an alcohol-free bottle shop.
Okay.
Where they sell
Like wine, or is it hard liquor, whiskey?
Well, only alcohol-free versions.
Yeah, I know, but is it
so the
liquor
the
that's
spirits or the wines, the beers, and then there's a lot of companies that have like kind of mixed drinks that are canned that are alcohol-free.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what their business was, but they actually ended up talking a lot about, and I'm making air quotes if you're not watching a video, plant medicine.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And that kind of...
So not very sober of them.
Well, they clarified and they said, we don't consider ourselves sober, we consider ourselves alcohol-free.
That's an important distinction there.
Well, it is a valid distinction, but I think that for this event and the audience were, women on the, generally 40s, 50s, 60s.
Yeah.
And maybe not quite the right target audience for what they were talking about. I mean, a lot of psilocybin and peyote and...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and trips to exercise issues and
mushrooms.
demons and shrooms, as they said. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine, the 40 to 50 women range being kind of the target audience, as you said, or being
for
like
plant medicine. No, it was not. It fell a little flat.
Yeah. Were people like looking around?
Well, actually, the kind of funny part about it is that the event, you took a ferry to go to this island where the event was being held. It was beautiful weather. And I mean, man, the weather was crappy the night before, and then it was rainy the next day. So we really lucked out with the weather. It was just gorgeous. Beautiful sunset over the water. Everything, the food, everything was fabulous. The keynotes were just a little off the mark. So, but you had to take the ferry to go back, and they also decided that they needed a little bit more time than was planned for their talk. Ooh. And so one of the ferries was going to leave at about 2/3 of the way through their talk, and about 75% of the people just jumped up and like ran for the ferry. It was kind of like, it was very awkward. I actually really had to go to the bathroom, and I was like, I am not going to get up and walk to the bathroom because I'm going to look like I'm leaving too. And I just felt like it was a little bit awkward. But it was like people, it was like Titanic.
Yeah, they're running out there.
Well, and to be fair, if they had to run to catch the ferry.
Well, that's the thing, is you can't even really be mad about it because it's valid. They took longer than they were supposed to. You don't want to be stranded on that island, especially with that the vibe. Crying and sitting in circles and really feeling your feelings. I'm not a big fan of that. I'm sure there's people that are.
Some people really loved it. Yeah, but no, there wasn't a lot of crying and sitting in circles at the actual event. That was the night before, and then the next day there was also a workshop they did, which I did not attend, but that was
you missed out.
I was good. I'd had enough feelings.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a good trip overall. Very eventful. I'm glad the ecstatic dancing turned out well.
Yeah. So, and what I learned about it is that I guess there are places that you can go and do ecstatic dancing like at all times of the day, because since it doesn't involve alcohol or anything, I mean, it's kind of just like a morning workout, and people meet up and do this ecstatic dance. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of cool. But the one thing that I did get out of it, and that was my share in the circle afterwards, because I wasn't, crying. And,
so do you have to go like person to person and share what you got out of it?
Well, they did at this, yes.
Jeez, that's a bit much. That's not even like optional. It's just,
oh no,
it's like summer camp, and I'm 5th grade, and I'm uncomfortable going through icebreakers introducing myself.
Yeah, well, so I wasn't going to get into the, and it reminded me of this trauma from I didn't go there. But what I did say was that, it kind of reminded me how much energy music can give you. And so in the mornings when I get up and I'm getting ready for my day, a lot of times I will be listening to a podcast or maybe have some news on in the background. I was like, maybe I should put on music because it really is kind of energizing. And so the next morning I played music as I was getting ready. And I'm like, so that's actually a good thing. I mean, kind of getting back to that idea. So that was my big share.
Well, that's good. I mean, as long as you can kind of get something positive out of it and it affects your day.
I mean, honestly, the whole thing was really fun. I met some fabulous women. Yeah. Saw some that I hadn't seen since the last one, which was in February in Palm Springs. So it was a great overall experience. Like I said, in Maine, we were in this beautiful place called Portland, Maine. Really small, kind of historic town. Got to do a little tour there. Fabulous trip over, and honestly, even with kind of the speakers being interesting, I mean, it was kind of a plus, I mean, you see a fabulous speaker and you're so inspired and you're like, wow, that was great, period. I mean, we laughed and screamed and, recounted it and really enjoyed it. So I think that was a silver lining.
Yeah, it sounds eventful. And I think from the outside, people may think it's a very calm and maybe even boring event.
But, oh, no.
Yeah, exactly.
When
you hear about it, the specifics and the speakers and the uniqueness, it's definitely far from it.
Yeah, it was good stuff. But what about you? I don't even know what's been happening with you for a week.
Not much. Not much has been going on, honestly. What did I do this weekend? I don't think I did anything. I think we went out and got food. We've been kind of doing our regimen of every Friday. She gets off work and like I said, we gorge ourselves. We just eat a ton of food as much as we can. We go out to new places kind of every week or try to do something special, almost like a date night. But we switch off on it. And so this most recent one, we went to Korean barbecue. Absolutely fantastic. It was killer. And then there's one day that I went to the grocery store and she wasn't with me. And I've been eyeballing this cake. Do you remember the strawberry shortcake popsicles, like ice cream?
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw one that was a full cake of strawberry shortcake.
Like a frozen one.
Like a frozen ice cream cake.
Oh, my God.
But it was the same type of ice cream and outside as the strawberry shortcake.
Like that crunchy stuff on the outside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think everyone can agree that's the best ice cream bar from childhood. Arguably.
Yeah, I like chocolate stuff, so
I even am liking chocolate stuff. It's just so good. Anyways, we walk past it every week, and every week I'm like, oh, can we get it? I want that. No, that's irresponsible. Can't do it,
Oh, what's irresponsible about it?
Well, I think it's because it was $25, something like that. And you can just get a popsicle. And it's just are we really going to eat all that cake? It isn't necessary. I don't know. Anyways, I snuck away one day and snatched up that cake, and it's been fantastic. And then she even admitted, Christina was like, you know what? I'm kind of happy you went out and got this.
Well, is it like a frozen thing?
Yeah.
So that you can keep it in the freezer. I mean, it's not like you have to eat the whole thing one night. It's
that's
not
what
gonna
I'm
go
saying. Bad. Well, I'm kind of irresponsible. I will just slam sweets if it's around. I mean, I don't have good self-control when it comes to that. But yeah, I mean, pretty chillax weekend overall. I've been looking forward to this show. Our last show got a ton of attention. I mean, we're kind of killing it on Facebook. 40K views on some of our shorts. I didn't even realize it. Not even just last show, just previous shows in general. Fernie's been absolutely killing it, making these shorts, putting on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, all of it. And they've been doing a lot better than I kind of thought they would, and this early on at least.
Yeah, well, I'm always surprised too that many people actually look at it, and then I'm also surprised at how many people comment on it. And I mean, good and bad and controversial and argumentative. And I always think it's funny when they get into arguments with each other. I mean, sometimes I will respond if they want some additional information or if they're questioning something, and I can provide a site to a study or article or something along those lines. But sometimes they're just back and forth at each other, and I'm like, oh, okay, I don't even need to.
Sometimes it's just mindless comments. Someone just I just don't even understand the comments, just completely out there. There's one woman that posted, I think she made 8 or 9 comments of different links to stuff. And then I went to our YouTube channel, and she went to our YouTube channel and posted the same links 8 or 9 times. And I was like, I love this. Thank God.
This is a lot of work.
Well, it's a lot of work, and it's helping us with the algorithm. We're just getting more comments. It's more interaction. That's what people love, and that's what makes it pop up. So good or bad, I mean, I think it's, in the end, good. All Press
Yeah,
is good
feel
press.
free, comment, call me names. That's okay. Call me an idiot. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a few of those too.
Yeah.
Which is just funny too, because I always think, I mean, it's not like these are my personal opinions or personal. I mean, I'm talking about cases that have been filed. I'm reporting about it. I'm talking about studies. That sort of thing. But that's all right if you think it's,
I mean, some people act like we just like walked in their house and took a shit in their living room. They're so upset with like a single reporting on a study or something like that. But hey, we'll be here. We'll always be here, giving you the facts, the cold hard facts. Maybe you don't want to hear it. Maybe you don't want to hear it. Maybe we got to shit in your living room a few times. We'll do what we have to do.
Oh, exactly.
Well, enough with those vulgar terms.
Enough vulgarity.
Yeah, we should hop into topics. Updates on cases.
All right. A lot of updates on cases. One of them is with regard to Johnson & Johnson and the talc that we've been talking about a lot over a number of episodes. And of course, that's an ongoing situation. And this one was just interesting because LTL, the division of J&J that was designated to take all of the liabilities from the talc cases, is now suing a doctor. Well, actually, they're suing multiple doctors who have written articles, done studies that have shown that the talc containing mesothelioma, or that the talc containing asbestos can cause mesothelioma. So they don't like these studies, so they're suing the doctors, which is like, it's just a big bully move.
I mean, there has to be some type of grounds there, right? I mean, that would be kind of against like freedom of speech of trying to silence and threaten.
Exactly. And so the update is just that one of the doctors has just filed a motion to dismiss. We'll see what happens. But saying that, their grounds are, they're saying fraud and libel. And she's saying, wait a minute, this is protected speech, and I have, and in the, first of all, the article's not just, self-published or something. It's published in peer-reviewed journals. And so that's very important. When doctors do these studies and write these articles, they submit them to the various medical journals. And what peer-reviewed means is that they don't just publish anything that comes in the mail to them. They have peers, other people who are experts in that area, review them and decide if they are worthy of being published. So again, this is not something where she's just, some kook
posting on her blog site that no one is looking at or no one's reviewing.
Or posting on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, commenting 8 times.
Exactly. I mean, this is, it's a study, and when you do these studies, you disclose all of, the way that you've done it, any biases that you might have. So I just think it's really ridiculous that they're trying to do this, but I mean, it can work too, because I mean, if doctors know that they're going to get harassed and sued and like this, I mean, it's going to dissuade them from coming out against a company like this. So my guess is that this is going to get dismissed. But, it's just another, BS move, if you ask me, from Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah, and like I said, I've been watching Suits a lot. I mentioned this in a previous show. And there's a lot of scenes of, like, just straight-up intimidation of either other lawyers or especially victims of cases and people filing cases, defendants, victims of cases. But is there other cases that you can think of or situations where something like this has happened, or is there some type of big case where there was intimidation or where there was kind of a scare factor that made people take a step back and say, okay, this is a problem that we need to keep an eye out for and deal with?
Well, it's very widespread, and lots of people are hesitant to bring cases because they're worried that they're going to get attacked. And doctors who are treating patients oftentimes are worried about getting involved again. They're going to get attacked.
By who, though? Like,
well, by the defense attorney.
Okay.
In anything that they can find in their background to try to embarrass or discredit them. But probably the biggest example of this that I can think of is why the rape shield laws came about, was because when people were sexually assaulted or raped, they didn't want to prosecute the cases. They didn't want to have to testify because the defense, or in that case, the defense attorney was able to bring up their sexual history, close the that they were wearing, all of these things, and basically attack the victim. And so it was so widespread, and you couldn't prosecute rape cases as a result, that they had to actually enact laws to protect victims in those circumstances and to make it more safe, more comfortable for them to testify so that the perpetrators could be prosecuted and jailed and all of that.
So what did they do? Was it so there's no cross-examination, or
Well,
they don't have to testify?
Well, and I'm not a criminal attorney, and so I've never been involved in one of those cases, so I don't know all of the details. But they can't talk about sexual history and things along those lines.
Okay.
So I don't know all the details, but it is very protective. And some of the ways that they were just abusing it in the past are no longer allowed.
Okay.
So that would be like probably the best example that I can think of. And what you do prior to trial, if you have a client who has some things in their background that you don't think are relevant to the case and you don't want to be brought out, that's something that you would address in a pretrial motion with the judge to exclude, and so to upfront say, that you cannot ask these questions, and have the judge say that, this area is off limits. So, and a lot of those pretrial motions make a big difference in what happens and whether people even want to move forward.
Yeah. I think it was, when I was watching the OJ case, there was a lot of pretrial motions of excluding certain information that was like just game changing and like threw the prosecution off a ton. And it's a big point of people. Like you said, it can sway a case massively if you're not able to bring up either specific evidence or even mention an entire topic.
Yeah.
And I would assume with these large corporations as well, and they have so much money on the line that it's especially risky to kind of come up and especially be one of the first people to come up and say there's something wrong or they're doing something wrong.
Yeah. And so you become the victim then. So, and I think that a case like this, I mean, it's very important what happens, and hopefully the judge will dismiss it and potentially even sanction the other side for bringing this type of a case.
Yeah.
And that, but something that needs to happen, they need to be kind of slammed on that to dissuade companies from doing it in the future, and to, not kind of chill doctors from getting involved in these cases.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, that makes sense. And so how long will that take? When can we expect to hear a decision on this? Do these type of cases go a little bit quicker, or are they the same as others kind of?
Well, it wouldn't be as long. I mean, a libel case would not likely be as long as say a talc case or something along those lines. But this is just the motion to dismiss the case. Okay. So that should be heard relatively soon. Okay. So we'll definitely update and let everybody know. Hopefully J&J is going to get slapped around a little bit again. Yeah. They can use it.
I'm curious to see how this turns out, because I think if it did go in their favor, J&J's favor, then it would kind of set a dangerous precedent, and a lot of other businesses would kind of take that path.
Yeah, it certainly, kind of like with the Texas two-step, they did it and everybody else was like, oh, that sounds like a good idea, we're going to do it too. But even if, so this is just an initial motion saying this case should not be allowed to be brought at all. Even if it's not dismissed, there is still a very good likelihood that ultimately the doctor will win, and they will not be successful. But kind of nipping it in the bud here, kind of just knocking it out at the very beginning, that would be ideal, and certainly save them a lot of money and time.
I was going to say, even if it doesn't get nipped at the bud, but the doctor still wins. I mean, that's still kind of a win for J&J, because people don't want to deal with that. People don't want to be served and go through all those steps. And it is another thing, even if you know you're going to win, it's another thing to consider, and it kind of adds that fear factor.
Well, and then the question whether you have insurance that's going to cover your defense, because it's not a malpractice case per se, and depending on what type of coverage she has, she might be paying out of pocket for a defense attorney, so that could be very expensive. So I'm very hopeful that this is not going to fly.
So we'll keep an eye on that one. What other updates on cases do we have?
Lots. Actually, we're mostly updating today.
Well, and that's good. I was going to say, too, is we've been having this show for quite a while. I think we recently passed 20 episodes.
We're at 23.
23. That's insane. 23 weeks of shows. Keep staying consistent. But that just means we have so many cases that we've been talking about, ones that we handle, ones that we don't handle, a whole mix of it, and we always want to give updates. So it makes sense that we kind of have a busier schedule today with the updates.
Well, that, and also that since I was traveling, I didn't spend a lot of time preparing other than little brief things. So,
Works out.
It does. Well, and this is really some really good information. A lot of things have been happening. The next one we're talking about involves the Camp Lejeune litigation, and that's one that's been in the news a lot. And that involves the water contamination at Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, a naval base, and anybody who was stationed there anywhere from 1953 through 1987 potentially was exposed to these chemicals that cause some really horrendous diseases. And probably a lot of people have heard about this. There was a ton of litigation or ton of advertising for these cases. So this is a situation where this exposure happened as far back as the 1950s, as I mentioned, and so potentially people's claims would have expired. The statute would have run, but the Camp Lejeune Act was passed last year, which opened the window and said anybody who was exposed had a 2-year window to file. So it's been about a year now, but there is still another year for people to make claims. And there have been about 93,000 claims filed to date. A lot of people affected and some, really bad diseases. But what the update is that they have made it much easier to bring claims for certain conditions. And that is because there's substantial evidence that certain of these contaminants caused certain conditions where if you have one of these conditions, basically you don't have to go through all of the hassle of proving the relationship. And those conditions, the ones where they're saying that there's substantial evidence are kidney, liver, and bladder cancer, as well as leukemia and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Jeez, those are awful.
They're horrible conditions. But so if those are the conditions that you suffered and you were at Camp Lejeune during the appropriate time frames, they are going to start making offers.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're not going to have to go through this whole big. A lot of people, I think, maybe haven't reached out to attorneys or pursued these because it sounds like a big hassle. But if you have one of these, they're saying that the offers will either be $450,000, $300,000, or $150,000.
Wow.
And so straightforward, they're going to be making the offers, okay? Then there's another group of conditions where they've established possible evidence of causation. And those are multiple myeloma, Parkinson's, kidney disease, and systemic sclerosis. So if you have one of those conditions, they're offering $400,000, $250,000, or $100,000. And then if it's a death claim, they would add an additional $100,000 onto the offers that we've already talked about. So, and again, there are just a huge list of conditions that potentially could have been caused by these chemicals, but some of them are going to be a little bit more complicated and looking at other possible causes, comorbidities, so it'll be a little more complicated. But these, they're going to straight up start making offers.
Wow.
And they're saying that these, and any lawsuits are probably going to happen in 2024, but these would be streamlined and again, pretty quick and easy.
Yeah.
And so if anybody has been hesitant to get involved in the litigation, there is still time. But again, and we talk about the statute of limitations things all the time. But, again, we're about halfway through that window being opened.
Yeah.
So time is of the essence. And, if you were stationed there, it's and you want to make a claim, you need to do it sooner rather than later. And again, yes, there's, say, a year left, but you do have to get in at least some medical records and documentation that you have been diagnosed with these conditions.
And it's really interesting. They're kind of already setting up these settlements so early on. And it makes sense. I mean, if people, those are some serious diseases. And one of the most common ones in my head are Parkinson's. I mean, I feel like that's something that is really common. And so if anyone has that, definitely reach out. But I feel like even if you don't have those specific ones, if you were stationed in Camp Lejeune, you should be reaching out anyway.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and you still can make a claim. It's just, it's not going to be the quick and easy one. But this is really an update. This just came out September 6th.
Wow.
Previously everybody thought all of the cases were going to have to go through the full process. That's not the case now. And that's a decent number of cases.
Yeah.
Or of conditions.
How often does this happen? Because I feel like this is pretty unique where they kind of just almost throw their hands up and they're like, okay, these are like some serious ones. We know enough information, whether it's kind of out there, that there's probably a good chance of it's connected. Let's just get this off our books and just start handing out the money early on. I mean, is that something that's common? What do the attorneys think about this? I mean, I think this almost helps their other cases as well, even if you don't have this condition.
Well, it's not common, and partly because we're not dealing with a big corporate pharmaceutical defendant. We're dealing with the Department of Navy and the Department of Justice. So these are governmental claims.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I think, a big part of the difference.
So because it's a governmental agency and they're sending up a claim against them, then they're going to be a little bit more lax or a little bit more understanding and kind of just want to get this.
Well, I think that they've recognized that this was a problem. There's no question about it. They did expose these service members and the members of their families.
Wow.
They are aware of it. And they, pursuant to this act, that is this is a way to try to make that right. Well, not never make it right, but to compensate the people who have suffered as a result. And so it's, they know. I mean, they're not disputing liability. They're not disputing that this, that these chemicals were there and the people were exposed to them. But previously, the time would have run out to make the claim. Now they've opened the window intentionally to compensate them. So they're saying, yes, we're going to compensate them. But, in any of these situations, there are the people who are going to try to jump in and say, oh, well, I was there and I have a hangnail and it's related to this. I mean, I'm being a little facetious. But, I mean, there are always people who will try to take advantage of things. And so they do need to ensure that, yes, the person actually was stationed there. And then, yes, they do have a condition that would fall within the purview of the, what can result from these chemicals. So there needs to be some review of these claims. But
and is there punitive damage if it's against a governmental agency, and if so, how does that work? Because you mentioned that if those conditions have amounts attached to them, but if those conditions caused a death, then it's an extra 100,000, which seems kind of low for a death to throw it on top. And it sounds like there isn't much punitive damage there, but.
Well, in this kind of context, there's no punitive damages. I mean, it's they're admitting that that they've caused the problem and they're going to compensate them, but it does not incorporate any kind of punitive aspect. The 100,000 is and it's not significantly more, but say if you normally would have had a $450,000, then another 100,000. Sometimes the cases where somebody has survived, the expenses to take care of them are significant enough, and the pain and suffering that they're undergoing make the settlement award higher than if they've passed away. Then you're now then giving the money to the survivors for the loss of the relationship, which can be huge. But of course, it always depends on who the survivors are and what the relationships were. Because I've seen cases where I've had clients where they were estranged, they had no relationship, and now they want to collect money because the person's passed away.
What do you even do in that situation? I mean, how do you make that decision? Is there?
Well, I don't take that case. It's a crappy case. I mean, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I had a case, and it was a ridiculous situation where this woman had died. And her daughter wanted to make a claim for her death. The woman was living at a nursing home, and the nursing home staff had alerted me at one point. They were like, she had abused her mother this whole time. When she lived with her, she would just put her in her wheelchair out in the parking lot of a Walmart, which was next door.
Christ.
Anyway, and she totally abused her.
Yeah.
And when I found out and there were multiple APS, Adult Protective Service complaints against her. And then the mother dies in the nursing home and she wants to collect money. And when I found this out, I was like, this is not sympathetic. And this is exactly where the defense attorney is going to bring this up and say, what is the value of this relationship? And I actually told her, I can't represent you. I'm sorry. I'm going to decline the representation. And she actually filed a bar complaint against me because I didn't take her case.
Wow.
Because I reviewed her case and turned it down. And, of course, that got dismissed immediately because you don't have to take somebody's case.
Yeah.
And certainly that's not a case that you want to take when you're going to invest your time and your money, and the damages are
And you're never obligated to take a case.
No,
In private
you're not.
practice especially. I mean,
No.
and even in public defense, I feel like you can still kind of opt out at times.
Yeah, I mean, a private attorney. No, I mean, I always remember from the bar review course, I always said, an attorney is not a bus. You can't just pay your fare and get on. You can say no.
Yeah. Has there been cases where you've had a client that has a big case, they end up dying, or they end up dying, either during the settlement process, soon after, and then family members, maybe estranged family members, kind of find out about it, find out that there's money coming their way, coming towards the family, and then they go to collect?
Well, yeah. And so, when you have a wrongful death case, you have to find all of the potential claimants. And so I have had situations where there were several children, or maybe say a spouse and several children, and then some children, maybe another child was estranged. But you can't settle the case without including all of them. But they may, and oftentimes they'll have different attorneys as well. And the value of the claims are not identical. I mean, if you have several kids, one kid's just a dick and hasn't done anything for you.
I was going to say, so their relationship is kind of what determines the amount and percentage that they get.
Right, because a wrongful death is for the loss of the relationship,
okay.
And so it depends what's the value of the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how is that? Is that determined by like you and the other attorneys, or is that?
Well, it'd be determined by a jury if you get to trial. Wow. Yeah. I mean, in settlement, you make your arguments about that, and sometimes people agree to an unequal division. Sometimes they don't. Mm-hmm. It can get ugly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think any family issues can kind of get a little
That's
sticky.
for sure. That's for sure.
You throw a few $100,000 in there, it's going to make it even more complicated.
Yeah.
Getting back on topic though, so Camp Lejeune, if you have any of those conditions, definitely reach out because the process is going to be a lot quicker and it's going to be expedited. But if you're even stationed there at any time during, what was the year range again?
It was 1953 to
86. I think it was
87.
years.
1953 to 1987.
87, yeah. So if you're stationed there at all, I feel like it's just important to reach out because there might be conditions or health problems that you've had that you just thought were normal, and they end up somehow being connected to Camp
Right.
Lejeune.
I mean, you just thought you were unlucky, and now you know that it was potentially a result of being exposed to these chemicals.
Yeah.
So.
I know that's a big case. But definitely want to keep on going through some of these updates. What else do you got for us?
Okay, the nursing pillows. We talked about those last time, and they were considering some regulations. And so the process has moved along. The Consumer Product Safety Commission so there was 4 commissioners, and they unanimously agreed to support we're requiring that these nursing pillows are safer through design changes and warning labels. So we talked about a little bit of that last week. So how this process works is that they publish these regulations in the Federal Register, and then it's open for public comment for 60 days after that. And then they have to review and respond to all of these comments and then finalize it. So this process could take months up to potentially years. And as we addressed, there are some industry entities, some companies, the manufacturers of these pillows who are certainly fighting it. But I think I think it does need to move forward. And here's an opinion, so go ahead and attack me for it. But, when you're looking at all of these babies dying, 162 babies that we know about have died. Yeah. And these things are everywhere. So let's make them safer.
And so are they taking them off the market until this is being decided? Or
no.
So they can continue selling it while they figure out how to improve the build?
So, exactly. So these regulations are not in effect, but they potentially will be. And the real issue is they're going to make them firmer so they're not as cushy, and then they're going to make that horseshoe shape open wider so that it's less likely that the baby's heads will get restricted, will get stuck in there. And again, when it's too soft, a baby's face can kind of meld into it if it's firmer. And then also if it's just firmer, you're not thinking it's a sleeping thing you're going to leave your baby on.
Imagine like fluffy too. Like if it's like fluffy and has like the fur, I don't know what to call it, the soft fur. That would make a big change.
Well, and the labels, they have to have big and clear labels reminding people don't let your babies sleep on this.
Yeah.
So that's a positive in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that is good. hopefully they kind of figure that out. I mean, it's unfortunate that they can continue selling these nursing pillows when there's clearly issues that have been recognized and they're working on trying to figure it out. But there's been a ton of deaths already. God forbid there be more deaths until they actually start, implementing these regulations. But yeah, I mean, good, solid update there. Hopefully, we hear more. Hopefully, it's a lot faster. I know you mentioned a few months, maybe in a few years.
Yeah, the sooner the better. And and of course, they're out there on the they're out there floating around, millions of them. So
Yeah, especially on resale sites. I mean, I know for babies and newborns. I mean, that's really common since they just grow up so damn fast.
Yep.
What else you got for us?
Well, let's jump into a update that also involves a case that we are actively pursuing, just based on our timing here, and that is the Philips CPAP recall. So
Yes.
the CPAP machines, and we have talked about that in detail, and we'll kind of do a little bit of a refresh. But the update is that there has been an economic losses deal set up. And so what this is it's not confirmed by the court yet, but presumably it will be. And so it was a class action, and it does not involve the personal injury claims or the medical monitoring. It's simply for like the out-of-pocket expenses of the machines. And so Philips has agreed to $479 million.
Wow.
Right. And that, because there's about 10.8 million recalled devices. And out of that, 445 million is going to the actual users, purchasers of the machines, and then 34 million goes to the health plans that have paid for some of them.
So this is completely separate from, conditions and problems that the actual users are having. It is just economic loss, so just the cost of replacing the machine and the money that they use to spend it.
Well, or actually even of purchasing it. And so what they're saying is that the users will receive anywhere between $55 and $1,552 per recalled device, depending on which one they had.
That's a really big window there, $55.
Well, it depends on which device they have, because some of them cost more than others, and then they get an additional $100 per recalled device that they actually send back to Philips. And so this is completely separate from the actual injury claims, and anybody who has these products are eligible. And in a class action, normally what happens is everybody is included, but you do have to submit a claim form to get compensated. In this situation, however, anybody who's actually enrolled their recalled devices in the settlement or registered them on the recall program online, they are saying that they will automatically receive the payment. So they don't even have to submit a claim form.
Wow.
Yeah. And so this is something where you don't need an attorney for this aspect of it. And of course, it's not like attorney's going to take a third of a $55 fee or anything like that. But it's just, straight out, you should get this if you have these machines. So make sure that you do register on the Philips website. We've had a lot of calls about this, just trying to get their devices replaced. Danny's taken a lot of those calls. She's been really great about helping people we have a lot of older clients who are older technical clients, but calling in and kind of helping them through the process of how to do that. But definitely worth doing, and you will probably not even have to fill out a claim form. You'll probably just get a payment on that.
Yeah, that's big. Easier, the better. I could imagine forms and all that. It stresses me out. I can imagine having a few extra years on me and, going through that process. But money's money, if it seems like it's pretty easy to kind of pursue that. And like you said, people have already been calling. So if they're unsure, don't know what to do, don't know where to go, then obviously we're open to helping out with that and directing them that way. And it is really good too, is like you said, you don't actually have to have a case. You don't have to have a medical issue. Just having the machine in itself makes you eligible.
Right, because you need to get the machine replaced, and so it's important to register it anyway, so that you can get into that process, and then you'll also get compensated. So that's just kind of like a little extra added bonus.
And they already need the machine, but wasn't there issues with them creating enough machines? Because I mean, they're having to replace millions of these, right? And
Yeah.
and they just can't keep up with the demand because every single machine has its issue.
Yeah, no, I mean they are way behind, and they were being investigated about that situation as well, and trying to put some pressure on to get them to create these or to produce these more quickly.
Yeah.
Because in the meantime, people are still trying to use them. And in fact, and just kind of as a recap, the issue is the sound reducing foam, this black foam, and that can break down and it can be inhaled and get lodged into your lungs.
And the CPAP, it's a machine where if you have sleep apnea, you stop breathing while you're sleeping. It's the face mask you put on, and it kind of makes it so you are forced to breathe.
Right,
Keeps
exactly.
you breathing. And then the sound reduction, I mean, I'm assuming that machine's very loud. So
yeah.
if you have a partner that's, not a big fan of loud noises while they sleep, how crazy, and you use that, then that black foam can kind of break up and deteriorate and then actually get into that air path, which is insane, because I know you mentioned some of the victims that had this condition, that had this problem, they actually found pieces of that foam in their lungs.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's just so crazy to me that it can first off, happen like that. It deteriorates and then it goes into your lungs, but that it still stays like together, And
Well, like little teeny tiny particles.
exactly.
Yeah. No, it's scary. I actually saw there was a video on YouTube, and it was an owner of the device who was saying, I can't get this thing replaced. So he was showing people how to remove that sound abatement foam from it. And
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It shows exactly like how to just pull it out without breaking it up, and because he was saying he's going to keep using it just without the sound abatement foam until he can get his new one.
Yeah, I mean, you got to, right? I mean, I'm imagining it's terrifying to not breathe, wake up from not breathing or having that type of issue. And obviously it can be really extreme. So you need to use the machine, but knowing that, every time you use it, if that foam's in there, especially if it's an older model, if it's been a while, you've been using it for several years, the chances are there's going to be some problems with it.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, and really serious conditions. Just kind of as a refresher. And in these cases, we're still taking these cases. They're still viable cases, and people may not even realize that the conditions that they have could be related to these machines. And it's a really long list. I mean, some of them like sinus cancer, nasopharynx cancer, but then, throat cancer, nasal cancer, lung cancer, the things that you're thinking about, yes, you can see that with your airway. But then there's other things like liver cancer, liver disease, multiple myeloma, acute kidney injuries, prostate cancer, liver failure.
Just random stuff out there that it's
leukemia. Yeah, I mean, so once this stuff gets into your system and starts circulating, it can cause problems that you wouldn't think would be related to a breathing machine. So, it's definitely worthwhile talking to somebody if you've been using this product, going over your medical conditions, and determining if they are on the list. Again, these cases are, you can still file the cases. The litigation is ongoing. But, we've had a lot just with the whole earplug litigation that settled, and all of a sudden people wanted to get in on it, and they're like angry that they didn't know about it. So here we are reminding these cases, don't wait. There will be a cutoff at some point, and and again, it has to do too with when you knew or should have known that the condition was related. So that can, there's ways to argue back and forth on that.
Yeah. Well, and it makes sense, too, that there's issues outside of just kind of like the breathing canals that you mentioned, the ones that you would assume would have issues, because once this chemical gets into your bloodstream, I mean, it can affect anything and everything in there. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but the CPAP machines, I mean, all of them have this issue, right? Like if you are using a CPAP machine, it's worth reaching out.
Well, not 100% of them, but almost all of them, yes. I think it's like 16 different models. More likely than not, it is one of the
More than likely than not, you're using one that is included in this case.
Yeah. And again, you certainly can check that out on Philips' website, and you're welcome to call us if that's easier. And we can let you know if it is one of them. But, it's very serious. as of, we talked about this, by the end of the first quarter, they had calculated deaths were up to 385 that they were linking, and over 105,000 reports of injuries. And you know that these are just a tip of the iceberg, too, because, again, people have no idea that these conditions could be related to this machine. Some people still haven't even heard about it. And then the number of people who have a problem and actually report it, there's a big gap there. People just don't report it. So, if you think that if you're using the thing, give us a call. We'll be happy to help you figure it out.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, I was going to say, too, 385, it seems like a really low number there for all of those reasons that you mentioned. But the biggest being, I mean, leukemia, prostate cancer. I mean, some of these things are just, you would have absolutely no clue. It makes no sense. But then, hopefully once you start hearing information and hearing about kind of the risks of these CPAP machines and what could happen, then hopefully that kind of makes a connection for a lot of people. And then, as more people start reaching out, that number starts going up. And I mean, those conditions that you mentioned too, those are fatal ones. I mean, those are eventually that's going to lead to death or regardless, just very difficult times.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good update. I think that case is really interesting just because of kind of the mass scale of it. I mean, let alone if you're using a CPAP machine. I mean, I know sleep apnea. Bert Kreischer, I mentioned him last time. Bert Kreischer, I know he uses the CPAP machine. He has a great podcast, Two Bears in a Cave. He's a comedian. He had a movie, The Machine, which I didn't see, but heard it was good. And he talks about having a CPAP machine. He's a big guy. And I know that's really common. A lot of big people, have CPAP machines. And the fact that more likely than not, if you are using one, it's going to be one of these models is terrifying.
Yeah.
We are kind of coming to a close here on the show. Was there any topics that you wanted to cover and make sure that we kind of spend some time on? Well,
maybe just a couple quick of the stories in the news. One that I've seen a lot, I don't know if you've seen this, the one chip challenge.
Oh yeah, that's everywhere.
Yeah. So I had not heard about it until, of course, it became a lawsuit because a teenager died.
I think I heard about this too.
Right. And so this is this Paki chip.
Yeah. So it is essentially, it's a one chip challenge, which it's supposed to be. You buy a box and it has a single chip in it. It looks like a Dorito. It's a big chip though, and it is literally black. It is black with powder, and it's supposed to be just insanely spicy.
Yeah. Well, so it's just happened, and the two chilies, I hadn't heard of these, but it's Carolina Reaper and Scorpion chili peppers, and I guess these are the two hottest ones that are on there. And it's not. There's nothing been proven that the death was for sure as a result, but it involved a 14-year-old boy in Massachusetts, and he ate this. I guess he was at school at the time, went to the school health, to the nurse, and they sent him home rather than calling the hospital. And then he was found unconscious shortly thereafter and died. So, there's no indication that the autopsy report has been released yet. And so we don't know if it's...
Seems like a little bit of a stretch to immediately kind of blame it on the chip here. I mean, all right. And it makes sense for them not to call the ambulance. I mean, like I said, right, your first guess isn't going to be like, okay, he ate a chip. His life is at risk here. Yeah. He's miserable, exactly, but his life isn't at risk. And then he's found unconscious, and there's no autopsy. There's no direct connection yet. Had the parents picked him up and found him unconscious at home, or did they just leave him on the bed in the infirmary?
No, well, he was home, and then the brother found him passed out. He was taken to the hospital and then pronounced dead.
Wow.
So, yeah, not a whole lot of details yet. I'm sure that more will be coming out once there's an autopsy and there's some indication as to whether this was actually related or not. But it's definitely getting a lot of attention because it's been so popular. And I guess they do warn that it shouldn't be, that children should not have access to it.
Yeah.
Some people can have allergies or sensitivities to spicy foods. I mean, I would think you would have some idea about that.
Yeah, I mean, and this has been really big. I mean, this has been big for a while, just pretty much any influencer or YouTuber, I'm sure, has done this type of challenge. It's like the cinnamon challenge, if you remember that back in the day.
Well, you haven't done it, have you?
No. Oh, no, no, no. I never understood challenges. Like, why would I put myself through that for what? Like, I don't have anything to prove.
But you could put the video on and hopefully go viral with your reaction.
Okay, maybe we both eat one for the podcast. Try to do a full podcast right after we eat one. Then it makes sense. Then at least, someone gets some enjoyment out of it. But if you look up one chip challenge, there's already thousands of people all over YouTube that have done that.
Well, I started looking at it, and then some of them were just kind of dumb. I mean, they're, and it's just, I guess, how long you can wait before you, eat or drink something to help dull it. But it kind of reminded me that this is some bad parenting on my part. But I don't know if you remember when we used to do the chicken wings, and I always really loved super spicy chicken wings. And then and you were just this sweet little boy, and you wanted to try to keep up with me and impress me that you could have chicken wings as hot as I did. And sometimes your face was just
in pain. Yeah, my dad always tells me that I would be a baby, and he's Mexican, so he makes a lot of spicy food, and he would just put a jalapeno, a slice of jalapeno in my mouth before I could even talk, and I'd be not
try to build up your tolerance.
Yeah.
Well, I'll just say that he didn't tell me he was doing that.
I don't know if he really did, but he always makes that joke. But one of my first solid foods was jalapenos.
All right. Well, and you do like spicy food.
I do. And I don't know why Christina likes to tell people I don't like spicy food.
Really?
That's just absolutely absurd. I love spicy food. What I don't like is if it's so spicy that it's really uncomfortable. I like to enjoy my food. For example, Buffalo Wild Wings, a lot of those wing places have the spicy wing challenge where it's just it's not flavorful. It's not flavorful at all. It's just spicy, and you don't even get to enjoy the wing or the food at all. It's just pain, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
I can do it, of course, but why do it?
See, I used to kind of feel like I needed to prove something, and I really did I was like, oh, if it doesn't make you sweat, it's not worth eating, blah blah blah. But you're right. I mean, I want the food to taste good, so. And
sometimes adding a little spice does add flavor.
Oh yeah, you need some spice. You just don't need to. Well, so quickly, and we're gonna skip the question because since we talked about that, we have to talk about the Dragon Balls.
Okay, yeah, let's get into it.
All right. So, and this involves a Thai restaurant in the San Francisco Bay Area. And this was actually a lawsuit that was filed by a woman who went to the restaurant and she ordered an appetizer called Dragon Balls, which I think might be a hint just right there. It's a little bit of a warning, I just think, in the name.
Yeah, maybe they're a Dragon Ball Z fan, too.
Well, that's true. But it sounds spicy, and I guess their description was a true revolution of your senses. Fireworks light up your mouth from our traditional menu that puts the true Thai back in command of Thai food.
Fuck yeah.
Well, so she had the Dragon Balls, and she said that they were so spicy that she had burns on her vocal cords, esophagus, and nose.
Jesus Christ.
Right. And so she filed a lawsuit saying they were unfit for human consumption, and she wasn't warned. Of course, the restaurant is saying, well, actually, we did warn you. We called them Dragon Balls. We advertised it as spicy.
Burn, is this a temperature burn? Is this a spice level? I can't even imagine spicy food actually burning you.
Well, I think you could. It could blister and burn.
Really?
The direct contact, yeah. So she said the roof of her mouth, her tongue, her throat.
White people, am I right? Come on. Well, jalapenos, you should be good.
Well, I don't know. Her name is Harjocelyn Walla.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe not. Oh.
So, anyway, so we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
But it actually sounds delicious. They described it, and it was spicy chicken fried with mint, shallot, green onion, cilantro, and kaffir lime.
Oh, I mean, revolution of your senses, fireworks blowing up in my mouth. Yeah, that sounds delicious. I'd order that right away.
I don't know. I think I'm going to skip the one chip challenge, but I think I'd like some Dragon Balls.
I'm curious how much she ate too, because I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of burning there. Is it just a single bite, and then all of a sudden all of this happened, or did she just force down 2 Dragon Balls because they're so delicious, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Holy shit!"
Do you think there's 2? Do you think they come in pairs?
Oh, there has to. There has to be. It has to be an even number. It has to be an even number. Maybe 2 Dragon Balls for 1 dragon, 2 dragon. Oh, when they ask you how many Dragon Balls you want 1 dragon or 2 dragons? And for 1 dragon,
2 per.
Exactly. You get 2 balls per dragon. How many dragons you got at the table? 3 people. All right, we'll get you 6 balls.
All right. Well, for next time I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, I'm gonna make an effort to go. And
Well,
check
hopefully,
that out.
they might have to take it off the menu now. Shit, we better hurry.
Oh, all right. Well, yeah, a lot of updates and news things. So we'll do some more questions maybe next week.
Yeah, we'll definitely touch in on that stuff. It was definitely a really good show. We had a lot of updates. I mean, it was
Lots happening.
I know.
That's what happens. I go to town and all hell breaks loose.
all hell breaks loose. Sarah Showered's not in the office, and this is what happens. Insane. But yeah, I think we're coming to a close here. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, hanging out with us on Prioritizing Profit. If you have any questions, concerns, throw it in the comment section, whether you're looking on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, wherever it is. We want to hear from you. And if it's a question or a story or something like that you don't necessarily want to put out there in the public, you don't want to put it in the comment section, that's completely fine. We understand. We got podcast@showeredlaw.com. You can throw anything in there. And it doesn't even have to be a question. I definitely want to see if people have like some stories or experiences that they want to share, because I think that can be really impactful for listeners to kind of hear what other people went through. And obviously it's one thing for us to talk about these cases, but it's a completely other when you hear from someone that's actually been experiencing
Definitely.
it, victims of the cases. But again, thank you for hanging out with us. We'll be back next week, next Wednesday, same time, same show, with some new updates and some new cases.
Sounds good.
Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
Dangerous drug and product cases.